Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Russ, K5TUX, Cheryl, W5MOO, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello and welcome everybody. You have tuned in to episode number 517 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. And tonight we are doing our Short Topics episode. So welcome into the Short Topics. This is where we talk about some amateur radio news, some open source news, some stuff that might help you out using Linux in your ham shack, and who knows what else. But we're glad you joined us. Thanks for being here. And as been the case for quite a while, Cheryl W5MOO is not going to be with us tonight, but the two of us are here. So I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so as we normally do on our Short Topics episode, we're going to start off with some amateur radio topics. And I guess I'll go ahead and do the first one here because Bill should probably handle the next one. And this is a story about blogs.radio. It's a new website using fresh RSS that has a feed of various amateur radio content providers online. And if you currently have a feed reader that you watch amateur radio blogs on for other sites, this might be a great companion for discovery of other sites and maybe replace your amateur radio feed reader. And I did see that there was a place to submit things, so I'm going to email them and see if we can get Linux in the Ham Shack listed on their podcast list, because they do have one. So
Sweet.
And I think right now it's only like This Week in Amateur Radio or something, but...
Oh, no, it's got lots of other blogs and stuff like that. I've been kind of perusing it over the last couple of weeks.
I think there's only like one podcast, specifically podcast. There's lots of stuff on there.
Okay, yeah, podcast, yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely want to get on there. And I did look through it. It looks like a pretty complete feed. Lots and lots of amateur blogs and stuff on there. So lots of feed content. And maybe it'll help us find some news articles. So
yeah, it could be a replacement for the Southgate ARC news feed that we were using before, right?
Yeah, which there was already a replacement for that we talked about, and I can never remember what it is. So I have to go back to our own podcast to find what that is. But
yeah.
Yep. More resources, always good. And, of course, a link to blogs.radio, if you can't remember blogs.radio, will be in the show notes. So check it out. And, of course, Bill, had to sneak this next one in here, but I totally understand because it's kind of a slow news week. So go for it.
Yeah, definitely a slow news week here. But, yeah, we're about a month out from Jamboree on the Air and Jamboree on the Internet. It's the largest international scouting event. And, of course, it's something we can participate as amateurs on the air with them. Every third weekend in October, the internets and the airwaves are lit up from scouters getting scouts on the air and various tools via the internet. You can find many resources for JOTA and JOTI, or JOTI, on the K2BSA website. Please register your station on the JOTA.info website. That's the JOTA.info website if you're interested in participating at that level. It is October 20th through the 22nd, and it pretty much runs, from Friday evening local time until Sunday evening local time. Generally, if you do register your station, you'll get... I haven't heard confirmation of this because the international team is a little bit slow on getting the information out, but there will be probably a Jam Puzz ID or something similar to that you can trade back and forth that scouts may ask for. If you have scouts, definitely register your station so they can collect follow-up information on your activation to see how that was. It should be a pretty good weekend. The bands should be pretty good. You'll find most of the stations on or around the scout frequencies, which are on the upper end of the general portion of the bands, NHF, as well as D-Star, DMR. There's plenty of talk groups out there, as well as Echolink, the Star JOTA 365 Star, plus there's some other JOTA Echolink nodes out there that you can use. And you'll probably even hear them on your local repeaters as local groups try to get radio merit badges complete and other activities related to JOTA, JOTI that weekend. So be on the lookout. There's already patches out for those of you that collect patches. You can find them on the Scout Shop. And so it's coming up here in a short month.
All right, very good. I'll probably participate in that because I think I did last year, if I remember correctly. And it's cool. And since I was also on the air with some of the scouts at the National Jamboree, that was pretty cool.
Cool.
All right, so the next thing we have is a bit of kit on the advertisement website Hackaday. But this actually sounds pretty cool. This is a story about the SDRdock 1.0. It's a next-level SDR device designed for both enthusiasts and professionals, built on a Raspberry Pi platform. Where are they getting the pies from? Come on, let us all know.
Yeah.
SDRdock aims to enhance the SDR experience by integrating all essential hardware components onto a single streamlined PCB. With the convenience of 3D printable enclosures and compatibility with various SDR dongles, this device is both accessible and versatile. What sets it apart is its tactile interface, featuring user-friendly knobs and buttons that transform complex SDR tasks into an intuitive and engaging experience. Yeah, these sound very advertising. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, SDRdock turns the radio spectrum into your personal playground. The current model is assembled from readily available components. The ultimate aim is to design a single integrated PCB featuring all essential parts and connectors. This streamlined approach will result in a more compact, durable, and easy-to-service device. The build requires a Raspberry Pi. They're not providing them. I see. So good luck getting one of these built. Potentially a compute module, a battery, and a 3D printed enclosure for the device. STL files are on the website. So if you're intrigued by the expansive world of radio frequencies, SDRdock could be your ideal companion. It's not merely about tuning into frequencies, it's about transforming the radio spectrum into your personal interactive playground. Sure it is.
Yeah,
it's a cool looking device, though. I will say that.
Yeah, and it basically brings the interface of GQRX up to the screen. So essentially, if you're familiar with GQRX, this would be a very familiar device to use. But it does it does simplify the usage for some users that maybe don't want to do a full blown Linux install or something like that, and have all the other applications, and they just kind of want to play around with an SDR device. This sounds and looks like a really intriguing device for that kind of desktop experience, small form factor with a screen on it and everything else. And apparently you can plug in your choice of SDRs currently. I think the RTL SDR is definitely one of those. I think the AirSpy and maybe a few others, at least for the initial support the initial support and whatever you want to call this, early adopters for a 1.0 device.
Yeah, absolutely. It even has a 7-inch touch screen, and it's, it looks pretty slick. And of course, you have to either have a 3D printer or have access to somebody who has one, because the case is, build it yourself. But that's the nature of kits. It does look pretty cool. So if you can get your hands on a Raspberry Pi, try one of these out. Do we happen to see how much they cost?
I think it's mostly a put it together yourself kind of project.
Yeah, it said something about a compute module, but I wonder what compute. Yeah, because it's showing
the Raspberry Pi compute module. That's a
Pi compute module. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's showing like having to have like faders and pots and buttons and stuff like that. So, and then there's a PCB, which I guess all this stuff attaches to. So, because it looks like a hat. There's a hat. So, it might be an interesting project.
More information to come. They do have all of the components listed there on the website. So you'll need a battery charger and a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, a 7-inch LCD screen. And they have links to all the products that they use to kind of build it: a potentiometer, a rotary controller with switch. You'll need 4 sliders, 4 rotary controllers, a volume pot with a switch. It looks like most of the stuff you can get directly off of Amazon. Yeah, so it looks like you can assemble this mostly yourself with the instructions that they provide, as well as there's a bunch of discussion items in there where people have attempted this as well. So
looks like a cool kit building project if you're into that kind of thing and you want to have access to an SDR that you don't just plug into your PC and link to your existing antennas or whatnot. So it shows an antenna built onto it, but I don't think it shows that as one of the parts. So
No.
obviously it's either going to be the piece that comes with your RTL SDR or whatever, or something you go pick up. So, all right. Well, that brings us down to some open source topics. So, Bill, go ahead and hit the first one here.
Yeah, this is one I just found on the opensource.com website because, I was fishing for open source topics, and this sort of kind of was interesting a little bit. This is edit your photos with open source artificial intelligence. And, of course, everything's all about AI and ML these days. So this is your dose of AI for this podcast. This is called Upscale, UPSCAYL, is a free and open source program that uses open source artificial intelligence to upscale low-resolution images. Upscale works on Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. It's easy to install on Linux, whether you use an RPM or deb packages. And its website contains a universal Linux app image, too, for those of you that participate in app images. For Mac OS and Windows, you can download the installers from the project's website. Upscale is released with an AGPL license. Once installed, you can begin upscaling your images. The GUI software is very easy to use. The software makes your old images look like they were taken yesterday with image resolutions that far exceed the originals. In addition, you can batch scale entire folders and photo albums of images and upscale them all at once. And this, of course, is linked in the show notes. And it definitely looks like an interesting tool for some of those really old photos. I have some old ones that were snapped from a webcam with my oldest son when he was just a baby. And I was just messing around the computer with him and on my lap. And I'm like, I was thinking of possibly downloading this and trying it out with that just to see how well it does. So I didn't get a chance to do it yet because I was just throwing these notes together recently. And as your commenter said, we don't do research on this stuff. No, but I will try this out and give feedback later on. So Upscale, UPSCAYL is looks pretty interesting.
I will definitely do the same because I can think off the top of my head of quite a few pictures that were taken on an old Canon, like not even a megapixel digital camera that I had several years back that I would love to get some good high resolution out of. So I'm going to give it a shot myself. All right. So moving on, we have a story about Ubuntu. Ubuntu 23.10 Mantic Minotaur, or Minotaur, or whatever. It's Minotaur, is now powered by Linux kernel 6.5. Development on Ubuntu 23.10 kicked off in late April this year, quickly after the release of Ubuntu 23.04, Lunar Lobster. And it initially shipped with its, I don't think I knew until today that that's what 23.04 was. And it initially shipped with its Linux 6.2 kernel, which has already been backported last month to the long-term support Ubuntu 22.04 LTS, Jammy Jellyfish, series with the release of Ubuntu 22.04.3 LTS. During the development cycle of Ubuntu 23.10, the development team upgraded the kernel to Linux 6.3, which was default until today. The latest daily build ISO image from September 16th is powered by Linux kernel 6.5, which is also offered as an upgrade option for those who are already using Ubuntu 23.10. Linux kernel 6.5 comes with some exciting new features like Wi-Fi 7 support, MIDI 2.0 support, and ALSA, still using ALSA? ACPI support for the RISC-V architecture, LandLock support for UML, which is user mode Linux, a TPMI interface driver for Intel RAPL, as well as numerous new and updated drivers for top-notch hardware support. Ubuntu 23.10 also looks to bring back the ZFS on root installation option, which was missing from the previous 23.04 release due to the move to the new Ubuntu desktop installer written in Flutter. And that came from 9 to 5 Linux, which a link to the story, will, of course, will be in the show notes. And 23.10 will be here before we know it because we're already at 23.9. So,
Yeah, it won't be very long now.
Sounds good. Exciting new stuff. Really, really modern kernels. Remember when kernels were like 2?
Yeah. So sad.
It seemed like 2 was around forever and ever and ever and ever. And then all of a sudden there was 3 and now it's 6.
Yeah.
So, all right. Speaking of 6.
Yeah, we got LMDE 6, Linux Mint Debian Edition beta is now available to download. The next major update in the LMDE series is based on the Debian 12 Bookworm, which offers significantly fresher stack of software than the available to users of LMDE 5, meaning as upgrades goes, this is a compelling one. LMDE endeavors to offer an experience that's close to Linux Mint as possible without relying on the Ubuntu infrastructure. Maintaining LMDE also enables Mint to ensure its homegrown software is compatible with Linux distros outside of the Ubuntu sphere. Its chief reason for existing, however, is insurance. To quote the Linux Mint website, LMDE's goal is to ensure Linux Mint can continue to deliver the same user experience if Ubuntu was ever to disappear. It allows us to assess how much we depend on Ubuntu. The foundational update is the main feature in the LMDE 6. Everything else is largely the same as the recent Linux Mint 21.2 release. Examples are Cinnamon 5.1, touchpad gesture support, resize Mint menu, redesign the software manager, support for HEIF and the AVIF image, etc. And this story came to us from OMG Ubuntu.
All right. I haven't used Mint in a really long time. And now with the availability of Ventoy, maybe I should just run like 7 different distributions a day and see how they work. I tried out just the other day, someone in passing in the chat, in the Discord chat, mentioned Farron OS and also mentioned Fedora Silverblue. And so I just popped around and tried those because I could.
It's very easy to try it on bare metal that way.
Yep, very, very easy. Of course, I was doing it in Hyper-V. For some reason, my Windows 11 box that I use for work does not really like VirtualBox. Not really sure why. It networking was all messed up, and I was having issues with it. So I started using Hyper-V, and it seems to be fine. So whatever, you use what you can use. It all works basically the same.
Interesting.
I might try. I might give VirtualBox another try here, someday. But I've been using Hyper-V without issue. So, and of course, I use WSL as well. And my workflow is fine. So it's one of those things that's really back burner.
Interesting.
Anyway, yeah, check that out if you're into Linux Mint or you want to see where Linux Mint is going. And that brings us down to Linux in the Ham Shack. And Bill has been apparently blowing away his XPS 13 and doing new stuff with it. So he has an update.
Yeah, and apparently I need to blow away this computer too. Geez, I'm watching my USB device disconnect and reconnect and disconnect and reconnect. So I'll pay attention to the screen. If it goes silent, you'll hear me go silent for a second, then I'll pick back up. But anyway, yeah, I took the XPS 13 and removed Pop OS after our discussion with Aaron over there at Dragon OS or SEMA Executor. And I wanted to try out my RTL SDR dongle 4 on that platform without all the hackiness that I did to my Pop OS installation. And then as soon as I got it on there, I couldn't take the SDDM and LXQt, so I quickly just installed the GDM and GNOME. And at least minimally, it looks more pleasing to the eye to me. I still have access to all the software that's on there for Dragon OS. And I really kind of want to dig into using the SIG-Digger, even though I know I can install it in Pop OS. I just didn't want my hackish system involved. And SIG-Digger, I just want to briefly mention, is a Qt 5 digital signal analyzer written in C++ that runs in GNU Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. Unlike existing alternatives, SIG-Digger is not based on GNU Radio. Instead, it uses its own DSP libraries called SIGUtils and a real-time signal analysis library called SUSScan. So sus, totally sus. That exploits multi-core CPUs to distribute the load. Also, SIG-Digger supports most SDR devices in the market thanks to SOAPy SDR, which, if you remember from our show, is not really recommended in Dragon OS. But anyway, SIGUtils, SUSScan, and SIG-Digger are software libre, licensed under the terms of the GPL license version 3. And just some of the quick features here. It supports it's cross-platform. It's OpenGL enhanced Spectrum and Waterfall. So that means it definitely lives better in a hardware accelerated environment. Both real-time and replay analysis modes, analog playback for your AM, FM, LSB, USB goodness, baseband recording, a bunch of signal inspection like AFSK, FSK, PSK. I'm assuming, I think on some of the screens, if you're doing QAM or something like that, you can actually see the individual points to the QAM signal. A bunch of cool little tools and stuff like that. And we really haven't ever dug into this one because I really didn't know about this one. So I'm going to play around with it some more and see if I can get some more internal feedback myself of actually using it and see how I would use it versus, let's say, SDR++ or GQRX or SDR Angel in this kind of environment with my shiny new RTL SDR version 4. So just kind of wanted to give them a little bit of props because it looks like an interesting application for sure.
All right, sounds good, and maybe a topic for a deep dive. We can delve into the depths of SIGDigger.
Quite possibly.
It seems like a really cool thing, and we have been talking a lot about SDRs. They're very popular because there's all those different things. Because you've got the people like Hackaday putting out things for SDR, and what's the 5 SDR thing? The
5 SDR thing.
Was it 4 or 5 that they're all stuck together? You know what I'm talking about. It's a single unit that's like 4 SDRs all in one.
Oh yeah, the Kraken.
Yeah, the Kraken, stuff like that. So lots of uses for SDR, and of course some of the modern radios out there are all SDRs too internally, like the Flex radio and so on. So lots of interest in SDR these days. I'll just throw in that I've been digging on Bodhi Linux with Moksha. We talked about it on a few episodes ago, and I threw it on one of my computers here, and I'm really starting to like it, and I'm thinking about maybe taking some stuff off other things and going with it. It runs so much faster than the Garuda on some of the older hardware that I have here, and the Enlightenment desktop is just as crisp and clean as KDE and Plasma and stuff like that, and everything that I've tried to do with it works. And you don't have to worry about the vagaries of Pac-Man and all the archiness in the background. And I don't know, I'm really enjoying it. So if you want to give Bodhi Linux a try, Bodhi Linux 7 with Moksha, I highly recommend it.
Interesting.
So with that being said, we're down to announcements and feedback. And Bill has a rather large announcement.
Yeah, we've been mentioning over the last few podcasts that I would be going to Linux Fest Northwest, and it's been canceled, unfortunately, or postponed. Nobody likes to use the word canceled anymore, but apparently they received unfortunate news. The Bellingham Technical College, where Linux Fest Northwest has been hosted for 20 plus years, has announced facility closures for the fall quarter due to emergency repairs. So as a result, the Linux Fest Northwest 2023 for October 20th through the 22nd must be postponed. So I hear there are still going to be some live events going on there. So there'll still be some meetups and whatnot, but there will no longer be the Linux Fest occurring. So hopefully you're not like me and had already made plans and now I'm going to turn the whole thing into just a vacation. So
Paris, the thought that you're just going to have to go to Washington for vacation. I mean, oh, geez. Whatever will you do?
Yes. Yeah. So, and we happen to be staying at a nice spa hotel. So, yeah, might actually have to get some spa time in. So,
well, there you go. That sounds like way more fun than Linux Fest Northwest, but
quite possibly.
All right. Very good. We did get some feedback on YouTube from Mr. Jay Lassiter on the last episode that was published, which means Bill must actually be caught up with posting our episodes on YouTube at this point.
Yeah.
Sweet. Excellent. He says, ham radio in Linux, what's not to like? Fair point. Not much I can add to that, but thanks for the feedback. We really appreciate it. I don't know that we mentioned the Reddit feedback like in the show, but yeah, we got some hate on Reddit, but that was 9 months ago. So yeah, whatever. We don't have to talk about it. You can dig around on Hamcasters if you want to find it. It's there. And where are we? We're doing this thing where we have new subscribers, supporters, and live participants. I guess we should get to that.
Yeah.
Along those lines, let's talk about the people who joined up recently. We have Thomas David Hood on Facebook, Jerry Woods, Arnie Berger, and Justin Fry. On X, we have @VaneJim. Nothing on Instagram. On Mastodon, we had @WA4GK, @AC7KY, @ChrisGuy, @Deb1046, and @NDZ. On YouTube, we have Travis Newman. Nobody new on the mailing list. Of course, this has only been a few days since the last recording, so I'm kind of surprised we have as many as we have here. On Discord, we have several new folks, too. We have Dell, KF0BGG, Matthew, KB0X, LKJGO87, Driven Mads, and Jan Luca. And tonight in the live chat, we had Ted, WA0EIR, Tony, K4XSS, Darren, VK60K, Don, KB2YSI, Steve, KJ5T, and I don't see anybody else to add to the list, so I guess we're going to end it there. This has been episode number 517 of Linux in the Ham Shack. We were glad that you could be part of it, listen to it, or whatever. We're glad for all of you who support us, whether you just download the show or whether you support us financially. Everything you do helps us keep the lights on, and word of mouth is a great tool for getting the information out there. So if you want to give us a casual mention wherever you go, that would be really great. There's merchandise too. We don't mention it that much, but it's out there. A couple of different stores for different things. So if you want to wear some cool swag, check that out. Stuff's available, and we appreciate that as well. It helps keep the lights on. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, and we'll catch you all in a week. Hope you have a good one. This has been episode number 517 of Linux in the Ham Shack. For the On Assignment, Cheryl, W5MOO, I'm Russ, K5TUX.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Our website is located at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast by visiting the LHS Patreon page at patreon.com/LHS Podcast, or by using the contribute list on the homepage. We have a presence on Discord, Facebook, IRC, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also drop us an email at info@lhspodcast.info or leave us a voicemail at 1-909-LHS-SHOW. That's 1-909-547-7469. Visit the online LHS merchandise store at shop.lhspodcast.info for fun and fashionable show-themed merchandise. Until next time, remember to always heed your hedonism.